Peninsula Wellness, Peninsula Alternative Health, Peninsula Holistics, with our weekly Lunch and Learn. Every week we take 20 to 30 minutes, hop on YouTube Live and try to deliver some value, some education. Typically it's me. Last week we had Brandon Bell step in and he did a more holistic approach to wellness. We talked about breathing, he talked about yoga, to exercise, perspective, mindfulness, how all these things are really a part of your overall wellness. So we've been really having a lot of success with these. People seem to enjoy them. We're excited to do them in a COVID environment where we can't have folks come inside, downstairs to the community room. This is kind of like the next best thing. So I am back this week. I'm talking about a perfect dose. This is something that always is something that's close to home to me, as I will tell you very candidly that in the beginning, and even now sometimes in our practice, the challenges that we have with our patients oftentimes are around getting the sweet spot of the dosing. I think sometimes it's important to really understand what the guide or the journey looks like for folks that come to us, and the fact that, you know, a lot of the patients that we see, especially in our practice, where we're known to have a really strong medical practice, a really strong medical focus, we get a lot of the more complicated cases and patients. And these folks come to us, and not only are they on a slew of traditional pharmaceutical medications that we need to understand how it's going to interact, but they've had a lot of challenges and not a lot of success with these traditional prescriptions. So sometimes the expectation that they're just going to come here, and after their very first consultation, we're going to give them some medicine, some cannabis, and all of a sudden, like, their life's going to get a million times better. That's not the narrative. That's not typically how it happens. Typically how it happens is we find that we will go through several and many different changes in dosing and product selection, tweaking of current prescriptions, tweaking of new medications and CBD and cannabis, and really understanding how this is all going to work together and play. So my hope today is to go over a little bit of why dosing is so important. I'll explain the endocannabinoid system. We'll talk about the entourage effect. Talk about some of the contributing factors to finding that dosing sweet spot. And then lastly, I'll kind of share how our patient services team and how here at Peninsula Holistics and Peninsula Wellness, we're really the best suited folks to help you out with this journey. So first things first, the always endearing and lovely endocannabinoid system. If for some reason this is your first time ever tuning in, just very quickly, every human, every mammal has an endocannabinoid system. And what that system is, main responsibility is creating a homeostasis in your body. So it is a receptor-based system. So we have receptors for our endocannabinoid system all over our body. And when we use cannabinoids like CBD, THC, CBG, CBN, those cannabinoids directly interact with our endocannabinoid system and create outcomes that a lot of times will alleviate and help folks with the problems and conditions and symptoms that they're having at the time. So the reason why I mentioned the endocannabinoid system is because at the end of the day, when we're trying to help our patients, we're really trying to balance that system. And when we talk about dosing, we want to talk about how an entourage effect, or how using all the constituents in the cannabis plant, all the cannabinoids together, is the most effective way of helping people. So what that means is from an endocannabinoid system perspective, if you're having chronic pain, or you're having issues sleeping, or you are having anxiety, and you are looking to not treat, because we don't treat, you're looking to address that using cannabis, a lot of times if there's not a solid consultation or the patient isn't given a lot of guidance, they'll just reach right for those heavy THC products. Maybe they'll go for a vape pen that's 80% THC with very little CBD or other constituents in there with non-cannabis derived terpenes, or maybe it's a high THC flower. Sometimes we come in and we see THC naive patients in other dispensaries being consulted to try things like RSO that are super high in THC. And what that does is it's not balancing anything. You're really just flooding your system with THC, and that's not going to achieve the same balance as looking at an entourage effect approach, which that says we're going to use all the cannabis cannabinoids and their constituents to and manipulate the amount of cannabinoids that we give our body to create this homeostasis, to create this balance that we're looking for. So, you know, it's unfortunate that a lot of dispensaries will push these high THC items on the patients, because if you don't know any better and you come in and then you start getting the high THC items, obviously most folks are going to like how the THC feels, but you're not going to be addressing the inflammation. You're not going to be addressing some of the root causes of why you may be having the issues that you're having. So with us, when patients come to us for dosing help, especially if they're not currently using THC, but sometimes if they are using THC, we'll ask them to take a break, a tolerance break, kind of reset their system and get an understanding of what their baseline is when it's not being flooded with THC. Then we'll start them on a CBD regimen. CBD does not benefit 100% of our patients, but it benefits the vast majority of our patients. It's very, very few and far between that there's a circumstance where patients are not going to benefit from CBD within their cannabis regimen. So with us at Peninsula Wellness, when you come to us, the very first thing that we're going to do is work with you and our experts and team to develop a CBD regimen and get that part going, getting those cannabinoids in the system. CBD is going to naturally slow down the metabolism of your androgenous cannabinoids. So we talk a lot about the cannabinoids that we introduce here at our dispensary: THC, CBD, CBG, CBN, CBA, CBDA, THCA. There's a host of them. But your body makes androgenous cannabinoids. On its own, your body is making its own cannabinoids. And one of the things that CBD does that it's not touted enough is it actually slows down the breakdown of your body's natural cannabinoids. So an example of how that could play out is for those of you that have strong exercise regimens and have really challenged yourself, maybe on a long run or a really hard workout, your blood's flowing and things are going well, and your body starts producing androgenous cannabinoids, which actually create the runner's high. So if you've ever heard the saying or the analogy of a runner's high, those are actually naturally occurring cannabinoids that are being produced, that are being flooded into your body, and is making your brain have that feel-good feeling. So by putting CBD in your system and slowing down the metabolization of those feel-good chemicals, that's one area that folks have a lot of success. The other is what we've learned through our practice is that a lot of the root causes of a lot of challenges that people face are actually around inflammation. And CBD is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory products that you could use in the market in a very safe and effective way. It's not like ibuprofen or Motrin that are going to have long-term kidney and liver problems. This is a very, very safe way to make sure that you're addressing the inflammation that's in your body. It's one of the number one benefits to the CBD, and in my opinion, one of the largest reasons why it works so well for so many people is because it's such a good anti-inflammatory. So we're going to get that CBD base going, get the patient on a ground level understanding of, okay, this is what I was taking currently. Now I've factored in CBD. Maybe my pain has gone from a 7 to a 4. Maybe my anxiety has gone from an 8 to a 4. And we'll notice almost instantaneously I say instantaneously and contradict myself, within the first, let's say 3 weeks, you'll typically notice material changes within the patient, and they'll start giving us feedback that things are moving in the right direction. And then it's at that time where our patient services team will really diagnose what's going on, and they'll be able to slowly, if necessary and needed, titrate in other cannabinoids. So maybe we need more help around sleep support. Now we'll be able to help those patients. We can offer more CBN products. CBN is tied to sleep support and has been really effective recently in folks that are seeking better night's sleep, we have a variety of CBN products in our dispensary, and Peninsula Holistics will be bringing some CBN products to market within this year. We'll be able to better address some of those concerns without just constantly throwing THC at everything. And then if the time is right and is necessary and needed, and we realize that to get from the 4 pain level to a 1 pain level, THC is going to be that perfect tool, then we can work with that. With our position of having the dispensary and the wellness all on one campus and having our staff trained on everything, we can really help our patients go down any path that's going to be best for them, whether it's going to be exclusive for a full spectrum CBD path where we're really avoiding THC and any type of high concentration, really addressing almost all the concerns with CBD, that's great. Maybe it's someone who needs a more sophisticated approach. Maybe they have gut challenges. Maybe we need to be utilizing CBG. Maybe we need CBDA for things like muscle spasticity, THCA for things like seizures. We can be very adaptive to what our patients need, and being able to combine all these cannabinoids in a very sophisticated manner to be able to put together products that are much more tailored to what you're trying to achieve. And that's really something that's unique to our dispensary. There's not very many places that you can go. You're not going to go to your local farmer's market and get this kind of advice. You're not going to be able to go to your pharmacy. You really need to come to someone like us who has both sides of the ball. So we have the traditional medical side. We're led by Dr. Hoffman, who has a PharmD and understands prescriptions and the pharmaceuticals, and it also understands how cannabinoid-based therapy works. And we can marry the two together with and in conjunction with your current practitioners, or if unfortunately need be, in a silo here. We have the resources to guide patients through. So a lot about getting that perfect dose is understanding what cannabinoids we need, and then we can start tailoring and playing with the ratios in which those cannabinoids are administered. Some contributing factors to your perfect dose, and I find this to be interesting, and this all kind of ties together, but certain characteristics that you may think from a logical perspective would have a lot to do with dosing don't always occur in cannabis-based therapy. So for instance, you would think by nature that a child who is 11 years old and is having seizures and can benefit from cannabinoid-based therapy would need very low doses of cannabinoids versus a 400-pound male who's 6'4", who has got Crohn's disease. What you find is that the height and weight and sex and gender and those physical characteristics of our patients do not follow the classic thought. You don't necessarily need more for a bigger person and less for a smaller person. It just doesn't work like that. It's really about addressing the symptomatic needs, understanding what's going on with the endocannabinoid system and how does it need to be engaged. How can we put catalysts within that system to create better health outcomes? So, you're not going to see a chart ever in our dispensary that says, okay, if you are 6'4" and 250 pounds, this is how much CBD you should start with, or this is how much THC you should use. It's always going to be a much more tailored approach based upon exactly how we're trying to stimulate that system. Tolerances are another contributing factor. Certainly, if you use anything for a long period of time, your body is going to develop a tolerance towards that. And cannabis is no different. So when we talk about that sweet spot, I would argue that a potential challenge that our patients will run into is that as their body continually adjusts to cannabis therapy, and as sometimes the tolerance builds up, they'll find themselves having to adjust their sweet spot. They'll find themselves having to make different changes to their cannabis regimen, including sometimes taking tolerance breaks. So it's not uncommon for a patient to come into us and let's say they have chronic pain and they have not had a good night's rest in quite some time. They come to us and lo and behold, THC and CBD put together in a solid regimen are the secret sauce to helping this patient's pain. And now the patient's pain went from an 8 to a 2, and now he thinks or she thinks that maybe just by adding more cannabis, I can get that 2 down to a 1. But what's not being considered in this scenario is the fact that cannabis is a biphasic tool. If you don't use enough, you're not going to have the impact you need. And if you use too much, it can actually be counterproductive, especially when it comes to pain. So if this patient is going along and without guidance, they just say, well, I'm just gonna up my regimen because I went from an 8 to a 2 utilizing what they told me to do, but maybe if I double that or maybe if I take a little extra, I bet I can get that 2 down to a 1 or maybe non-existent. And oftentimes, what will happen is if you use too much cannabis, especially the wrong type of cannabis, the brain will go away from not focusing on that pain and providing relief, and a patient getting that relief from the chronic pain to the opposite. You use too much cannabis and the wrong type, maybe something that's high in pining, your body is not going to be relaxed. You're going to be focused on the pain element that you have, and you're going to be making your situation worse than if you wouldn't use cannabis at all. And I think it's important to be able to put these very real life scenarios out there that there is a rhyme and reason to how you use cannabis, and this is a tool like anything else. And if this tool is not used properly, it's not going to work the way you want it to. If you try to screw a screw in with a hammer, it's not going to be effective. And if you just try to treat pain with as much THC as you can throw at it without putting a regimen in place, without adding CBD, without doing the right things, you're not going to help yourself out. What's going to happen is if you do that regimen where I'm just going to keep hammering THC and keep hammering THC, eventually your body's tolerance for THC will get so high that you will no longer feel those same effects that you originally did, and your pain will go from an 8 to a 6 or an 8 to a 5 or an 8 to a 7. It will be drastically reduced because your body is so used to metabolizing cannabis. And that's a really great circumstance for when, if you come into us, we're going to say, okay, look, you have overdone it. You're not balancing your endocannabinoid system. You're flooding it with THC. You're not getting the same effects that you were when you first started using this. You're going to have to take a break. You're going to have to take 10 to 14 days of using a high CBD regimen with no THC to get those receptors cleaned out, to get your endocannabinoid system in a reset mode where we can slowly and surely titrate back up and start adding THC back into your regimen, but not flooding your body with THC like you were currently doing. So there's a lot of contributing factors, whether it's what you're trying to treat, the type of product you're using is another characteristic that's going to change a lot of dosing. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that eating a 50 milligram edible may feel a whole lot different than smoking 50 milligrams in a dab. If you take that 50 milligram edible, not only is it going to be metabolized differently in your stomach, but that process is going to happen over the course of at least an hour, hour and a half. It's going to be a slower onset time, and it's going to be in your system a lot longer. If you were to just take 50 milligram dab or 100 milligram dab, that's going to hit you in a much different way. You're going to be receiving all of that at one time. It's going to come on much stronger than that edible will, and it's going to be a much different experience. And last but not least, it'll be out of your system much faster. So where maybe it's about finding your sweet spot, and I know I go to chronic pain a lot, but that seems to be one of the top reasons people come to us, especially if it's truly chronic pain that never ceases. The edibles are going to be providing much more coverage for those patients. It's going to give you a much longer period of effectiveness than smoking. And that's why, a lot of our patients, they need the multiple methods of administration because, the pain kind of maybe it's something as simple as, it's a rainy day and the humidity's high, and that really flares up your aches and pains. So now the aches and pains are coming on, and you have two problems. One is I'm in immediate pain, and two is I know that if I don't address this pain for the next 8 hours, it's going to be tough for me to get a good night's rest. So in a scenario like that, finding that perfect dose is likely going to require multiple methods of administration to get that perfect dose. It's not always about just getting the right amount of milligrams of cannabinoids. It's about how are we administering those cannabinoids. So we're providing a vape pen option in the beginning, where maybe it's only 15 or 20 milligrams of THC, but the onset time will be within minutes, and that'll give you the instant relief. As you then take an edible, or maybe like a 2-to-1 troche, for instance, with 20 milligrams CBD, 10 milligrams THC, you could take that. You know that's not going to kick in for 45 minutes or to an hour. Your vape pen's going to wear off sometime between 45 minutes and an hour, and you start playing with these tools so that I get the immediate breakthrough pain coverage that I need. I have the long-term coverage that I need to get sleep, and I'm going to make sure that everything is going to subside and get out of my system so that when I wake up in the morning, I feel refreshed and I'm ready to go tackle my day. Again, you know, if you're not dosing properly or finding your right dose and you're using too much cannabis, you're going to find that when you wake up, you're sluggish. You're going to find that there's negative side effects to not properly dosing cannabis. And oftentimes when I hear people that have a bad or poor experience with cannabis, it's almost always tied to bad dosing. Oh, well, I just ate an edible my friend gave me, and oh my gosh, you know, I went to the moon. It was way too much. It was too intense. Well, A, don't get street weed products, but B, more importantly, like, what research did you do? Did you realize that, you know, psychoactivity is going to start between 2.5 and 5 milligrams, and you took a 50 milligram edible and you don't use cannabis? That wasn't very smart. Or is it something that's more tailored, where you say, okay, you know, I'm THC naive. I don't use cannabis very often. I have a high quality lab tested product. I know what's in it, and I'm going to start with a 1-to-1 ratio of 5 milligrams and 5 milligrams, and then I'll see how that affects me. I'll document it, and then I'll titrate up from there, or I'll move up from there. And that kind of leads us into how we can help. Is that, you know, unlike traditional medicine, you go to the doctor. He says, here's your prescription. You're going to take Ambien every night, 15 milligrams before bed, and you know exactly what to do and how to take it. And there's, in full disclosure, there's more support from the pharmaceutical company on exactly what their expectations of you taking that 15 milligrams every day at night will be. That's through FDA trials. That's through FDA approval. There's a regulatory body that really makes sure that there's a foundational understanding of what can be expected, good, bad, or other. You know, with cannabis, both CBD and THC, all cannabinoid-based therapies, there's a lot of autonomy that's placed on the patient. There's a lot of responsibility that's placed on the patient. And what we found is that our most successful patients are those patients that are willing to communicate to us, be disciplined, and allow us to work with them on finding their sweet spot. You know, when you come in to meet with us, we're not just going to send you out the door with a hope. You're going to come in, if you get a Peninsula Holistics product, you're going to get a dosing guide. It's going to give you an opportunity to catalog and write down when you're taking it, how you were feeling before you took it, how you feel after you took it, and any notes. And by being disciplined and filling out these charts, and being disciplined and just taking your medicine when you're supposed to. If we tell you to take it twice a day, you got to take it twice a day. You know, CBD in particular does not work like THC, where you can just use it as needed and still get those effects. CBD is going to require a much more regimented fashion of administration, a more routine dosing schedule. That's going to require discipline on the patient. You have to remember to take it in the morning. You can't say, oh, I forgot and went to work and didn't take it, and then expect you're going to have the same health outcomes that you would get if you took it on a routine basis. So come to us. Let us be your resource. Not only do we have dosing guides, but all the information, but we also have a lot of just real-life experience in walking patients through similar challenges that you may be having. If you've used CBD in the past and it hasn't worked, I really encourage you to reach out to us. Give us a chance to help you. Not all CBD is created equal. We have a really fine, high-quality product, but our biggest differentiation is the support that we provide to that product. Send us an email, reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, whatever is the easiest way for you to get in touch with us. Send us a message. We'll link you up with Donnie Jackson or another one of our patient consultants and make sure that you get the support and guidance you need as you go on your new cannabinoid-based therapy. Tune in next week same time, same place. If you enjoyed this, the best thing you can do is like, comment, and share. Please share this on social media. It's important for us to get the word out. To be able to do these virtual offerings and spread our footprint outside of just Maryland is a blessing. We're really excited to do this. We thank you guys for watching. Hope everyone has a great day. Enjoy this beautiful weather.